Well, hello and a very warm welcome to episode 5. Is it really the 5th episode of BBC Conference Extra? I don't know about you, but I'm finding the conference is absolutely flying by. Like, there's so many fantastic sessions. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get to too many of them because we're once one of these live streams is finished, we're sort of preparing for the next one. But the ones I have been to have just been absolutely phenomenal. And of course, one of the great things about a virtual conference is the ability to go back and watch the recordings. So even if you've not been able to watch live, or if you've had a schedule conflict, you can go back. I think they're going to be released in a couple of weeks' time and watch the recordings. Now, because BBC Conference Extra is streamed live, you can have a shout out read out. So if there's a particular speaker that's inspired you, or maybe there's a particular learning point that you want to take away, or maybe you want to share a picture of you, like a conference selfie of you at your workstation watching the conference, all you need to do is go to the URL shoutout.link. That is shoutout.link, and we will cover as many shoutouts as we possibly can throughout the remaining episodes. And that's what this next person did. So Emily got in touch to us through the shoutout.link form and wants to give a shout out. And in fact, this is the second time this person's been given a shout out, which is always a good sign. A shout out to Jamie Champagne. Emily says, Jamie Champagne brings so much energy to her presentations, and having seen Jamie present that, I like +1 to that. And the energy rubs off, inspiring me to be the best BA I can be. So I do hope Jamie's watching this. If not, we can tag her on it in the comments so that she hears that really positive feedback there. So kudos there to Jamie. Keep in mind, of course, that the BBC is always a very social conference, and even though we're virtual this year, it is no exception. You can check out the various discussions that are going on in the app. If you haven't done that yet, why not go there and start one? You'll find people who are having the same challenges as you are, and you can have that peer-to-peer discussion. But the socials don't stop at the boundaries of the conference. The official conference hashtag is BBCConf. That's BBCConf with an F. And so why not, get on your favourite social media network. For me, that's LinkedIn or Twitter, and say something about what you're learning or connect with others. And it's a great way of really creating a global community of practitioners, both within the conference and also connecting that community with the community outside of the conference. So do check those hashtags out. I mean, I tend to look on LinkedIn and Twitter, and there's quite a lot going on, quite a lot being shared, so do make the most of that. Now, as ever, we have an absolutely packed agenda for this relatively short session. We have 2 fantastic topics tonight from 3 fantastic speakers. First, in just a moment, we'll be talking about business architecture, a topic I'm sure we're all hearing more and more about. And then secondly, we're going to be hearing about leadership styles for product owners. 2 really different but interesting topics that I'm sure have relevance for many of us in the business change, business analysis, business rules, business process type communities. So first, I have real pleasure in introducing our first 2 guests. So Chamkea Amerson and Joanne Guthrie both work for the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. They gave a presentation yesterday entitled 5 Keys to Accelerating Value Through Business Architecture. So if you didn't catch that one, again, be sure to check out the recording. Now, business architecture is such an important topic, one that we're all, or many of us I'm sure, are really grappling with. So I was really pleased when they agreed to come on the show and have a chat to us today. So Chamkea, Joanne, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Excellent. So my first question, given that you both gave a presentation entitled 5 Keys to Accelerating Value Through Business Architecture, when I think about that term, it seems a little bit like the term business architecture causes confusion and can even be a little bit controversial at times because people have got quite different views on what it means. So I was wondering how you both would define it, and also what sort of value it can add to organizations?
I'll start, Adrian. Thank you. In most simplest terms, I'd say that business architecture depicts the requirements of an organization to produce value as an integrated system. I tell people that as a business architect, I connect the right dots for a living. And it's by connecting those dots, I'm able to represent business challenges and propose solutions that take the entire organization into consideration. Most organizations understand the value of capturing strategy, process, organizational structure, and technology needs. What business architecture adds is the ability to see where these perspectives come together to enable capabilities. And capabilities provide a common language for all perspectives of an organization to measure success, discuss business challenges, growth, and change. Chamkea, would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd add the value is also being in transition planning, right? Understanding where we are currently and where we want to be and addressing those gaps. And more importantly, understanding the organizational or enterprise-wide impacts to make sure that we can assess, are we ready for this change? And what's the risk that we are undertaking in order to meet our target?
Wow, that's a really interesting, like quite a lot to unpack in those really concise, precise definitions there. I love that idea of connecting the dots, because it always occurs to me in organizations, we talk a lot about the components, about the processes, about but less about the connections, and that transition planning is so often left neglected. So that's a really interesting, and the different perspectives on that. So I'm wondering, I know you spoke in your talk about getting recognition for the value that business architects add. I wonder whether you're able to give a few suggestions on tips about how we can build that credibility and recognition within our own practices. So Chamkea, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so focusing on business outcomes, focusing on value, especially at the executive level, versus trying to sell business architecture or sell the terminology of business architecture. It's about that focus on value. What's in it for me? So making sure that the message is crafted, whether it's at the executive level or is within the IT organization, making sure that the message is crafted. And as you mentioned earlier about building a network, and it's the network outside of the organization, but it's also the network inside the organization. Because as Joanne stated earlier, it's about building that common language. So what other great people to help you build a common language than the people in the organization with you? And then start small, focus on value, quick wins. Prioritization is important, whether you do it based on risk or whether you do it based on the priority of the capability within your organization. But start small and focus on quick wins.
So start small, focus on quick wins, get that common language, show the value. Fantastic. Joanne, would you add anything to that?
I would just reiterate, I know it took me some time to realize that I got better results if I stopped talking about the approach and focused on the business outcome, like Chamkea had mentioned. Just don't try to convince the organization that business architecture provides value. Instead, use business architecture to tell a story that helps address a current business challenge. The recognition will be towards the outcome, the business understanding and plan to solve the right problem.
Yeah. So less focus, less conscious focus, less talk about the process of business architecture, the artifacts of business architecture, and it's, I guess, that old thing of focusing on the outcomes less than the outputs type of thing. Interesting. Okay, so another thing I'm sure people will be interested in hearing is whether there are any particular tools, techniques, or approaches that have proved invaluable or even pivotal as your team has grown and as recognition has grown about the work that you do. So Joanne, tools, techniques?
Yeah, I'd say identifying when you're stuck and where you're stuck and enlist expertise to move forward. We brought in Roger Burlton to help advance our efforts. And we also assessed tools and selected one that was a good fit for our organization, which is Biz Design. And I'd say the most pivotal approach was using business architecture to establish something in the organization, like application portfolio management. We built out our business architecture to describe how current applications in our portfolio enable the business and where those applications were hindering the business. Chamkea, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with everything that you said. The only thing that I'll kind of add to that is visualization and data are so important, and a lot of this is about enabling decision making. So with having the tool there to provide us with that visualization and with data on hand is key.
So visualization, data, linking it to that decision making, having the right tool, hiring Roger Burlton. I mean, that must have been amazing to work with Roger. I mean, that must have been a real privilege. He's a fantastic guy. So excellent. So without giving too much away from your session, because I'm absolutely sure people will be wanting to watch it when the recording is released, is there maybe like one key tip or takeaway that when you were designing the presentation, you were thinking, this is one thing I'd really like people to take away from it? So Chamkea, what would be your one big takeaway?
Keep moving forward and stay persistent. The message won't always hit people the first time or the second time or maybe even the fifth time, but believe in the value so much that nothing stops you in moving forward.
Fantastic. So having that belief, keep moving, be persistent. Joanne, what would your key takeaway be?
A picture paints 1,000 words and gains you the buy-in you need. The real key in there is that the story about the picture is equally as important as the picture or representation. So really take time to craft your story and avoid the business architecture lingo. Your work should support your story of solving problems from specific business perspectives. And that story should resonate with the business perspective you're addressing. So engage people, run it off people, but you really, it should resonate with them.
Yeah, that storytelling, it's so interesting, isn't it? I've heard storytelling in the presentations I've been to is almost like a thread throughout the conference about changing the language we use to talk about things. So that's a really interesting aspect as well. So well, thank you both so much for taking time to be here, taking time to share your knowledge, both of course in the session, but also those little nuggets with us here today. I'm sure people will want to watch the recording where it's available, but there may well be people who want to connect with you, ask questions. How is the best way for folks to connect with you both?
LinkedIn, definitely LinkedIn.
LinkedIn for me as well.
Yeah, oh, awesome. Yeah, LinkedIn it really is becoming the global network for professionals, isn't it? So fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Excellent. So some really thought-provoking nuggets there, and certainly, I wasn't able to watch that presentation live. That's one I will definitely be sort of bookmarking and coming back to. And I really like that whole idea of joining the dots and of changing the way that we talk about it, and of being persistent and building that credibility through delivery and really being conscious about how we talk about business architecture. So that's really inspired me to want to know more about that topic. And of course, if you are inspired to want to know more about that topic, there are many more sessions about business architecture that are still to come in the conference, because we're still kind of a day and a half left of the conference, which is fantastic. So before we move on to the next section, another common thread that we have weaving its way through these live stream sessions is a competition we are running. So how would you like to be guaranteed a ticket to the BBC Conference 2021? Well, if you enter the competition, you could be in with a chance. One lucky winner will win a 3-day ticket to the BBC 2021, whether that's in Florida or whether it's virtual or hybrid, nobody really knows. And all you have to do is get even more active on social media, which you're probably being active on already. Every time you use the official conference hashtag, which is BBCConf, on LinkedIn and Twitter, that counts as one entry. So why not, share your favourite takeaway? You might want to tag a speaker that you want to give some feedback to. You might want to take a picture or a screenshot or whatever, and get it out there and send, get the learning even further, beyond the boundaries of the conference, building an even broader, richer community of professionals. Now, as with any competition, T's and C's do apply. Contact us for details, yada yada yada. But every time you do a tweet or a LinkedIn update, that counts as one entry. The competition closes shortly after the conference and one lucky winner will be selected. So do make the most of that competition. Also, if you're into competitions, check out the sponsors and exhibitors' booths. I had a list from when the conference started, and it seems like the exhibitors have added even more competitions, which is just awesome. So, literally there are so many I can't go through them all, but there are things like Bose speakers, headphones, discounts, there's free courses. Check it out. Also check out the exhibitors' booths, there's a bunch of free stuff, and check out their services. Have a chat to them. They're all very friendly folks like you and I, so check out the exhibitors' booths. They're an important part of the conference as well. Do remember, of course, if you'd like a shout out read out live on air, you just need to go to shoutout.link. So if you've got something to celebrate, or if you want to give some kudos to a speaker, or if you just want anything announced live on air in the last 2 episodes, because we've got 2 left after this one, just pop your details in shoutout.link and we will read out as many as we possibly can. So that brings us very neatly onto our next topic. Have you ever thought about what type of leadership style you need when you're a product owner? Maybe you have, or maybe you haven't. I must admit, it wasn't something I'd consciously thought about till I started to have a chat to our next speaker. Now, many of you will be familiar with Paddy Dhanda. He's spoken at the BBC 2 or 3 times before. I can't remember now. You may also know him from the Visual Jam, which is an online community and meetup that he runs along with Grant Wright. If you haven't come across the Visual Jam before, Google it, check it out. There's some really awesome stuff going on there. Paddy is Agile Practice Director at QA Limited, and he's going to give us his perspective on leadership for product owners. So Paddy, over to you.
Hi everyone, I hope you're safe and well no matter where you are in the world. And for this year's BBC conference, I'll be sharing many of my lessons learned, especially around the product owner role, having been involved in some of the biggest agile failures anywhere on the planet. To be more specific, that's around £2 billion worth. Now, if we look at the Scrum Guide, it defines the role of the product owner as someone who is the sole person responsible for managing the backlog. And for the role to be successful, it requires the whole of the organization to really get behind every decision that the product owner makes. So as we can see, it's a role that requires great responsibility, decision-making, and judgment. Now, unfortunately, one of the biggest reasons why I've seen agile projects fail isn't because the development team haven't met their commitments. In fact, it's because the product owner has made bad decisions. And in some cases, I've witnessed what they call the God complex. Yes, it's actually a real thing. It's when someone has inflated feelings that every decision they're making is the right decision, and they often stand behind everything they believe without seeing the error in their ways. It's a condition that's often associated to medical staff, such as doctors, but it can actually be prevalent in any type of profession, including technology. And so if the whole of the organization, as well as the development teams, are looking to the product owner to make the right decisions, they're going to have to lead in a particular way. So what we'll be doing next is looking at some different styles of leadership that perhaps a product owner might want to follow. A really insightful piece of research on identifying the most effective leadership traits for agile teams comes from a book called Leadership Agility by Bill Joyner. His research spans over multiple decades from the early 1980s up until now, and he concluded the following 3 types of leaders are effective as complexity and pace of change increases. Firstly, there's the expert leader, and this is someone that's suited to environments where there is less complexity and the pace of change is low. But in more uncertain environments, their expertise becomes outdated. And this can sometimes be dangerous, since teams fall into a false sense of security, assuming that the leader has all of the answers. So if we put this in the context of a product owner, it can actually hinder innovation within a team because the team are so over-reliant on hoping that the product owner has all of the answers. Instead, then, the achiever leader is someone that is more strategic in their approach, but often they can end up coercing individuals into realizing their personal agenda, and this can be damaging for collaboration. Now, from a product ownership perspective, this could be where the individual is constantly setting the team with ambitious goals that just aren't achievable. So finally, the catalyst style of leadership. This is the one that seemed to be the most effective in a complex and fast-paced environment. Someone who is purpose-oriented and inspirational to their teams. Again, from a product ownership perspective, it's somebody who doesn't claim to have all of the answers. It's someone who's not afraid to say they don't know. And it's somebody that's hoping to collaborate with the teams as well as the wider business to make sure that we achieve our goals. So how can product owners ensure that they don't fall into this trap of the God complex? Well, it's by working closer with both the development teams as well as the wider organization. And one of the superpowers that we can use is visual thinking. And visual thinking helps us unlock creativity amongst the organization. And it's a way to be able to articulate ideas as well as help teams collaborate better. Another superpower that product owners can use is storytelling and the ability to be able to connect with people so that they feel more engaged, and hopefully better engagement means better inputs for the project. Really do appreciate your time today. So thank you for watching. And if you'd like to know more, then do please get in touch. Goodbye.
Wow, some really, really interesting, thought-provoking topics there. I really like Paddy's visualization, that kind of drawing that he was doing to set the context. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because we heard from our previous speakers about how a picture paints 1,000 words, and that's so true, isn't it? In so many different contexts, in the sort of work we do as change professionals and as people who are trying to help our organisations assess the environment, define their strategies and define their change strategies. I really like that idea of leadership agility. I was interested in what Paddy said about the God context, and I love the idea of POs working closer with the development teams and the wider organisations, and that visual thinking thing really, really resonated with me. Do remember, if you liked what Paddy had to say there, which I'm sure you did, do catch the recording of his session. And also remember that he and his colleague Grant Wright run the Visual Jam, which is a virtual community and with sort of various meetups with fantastic guests. I mean, like world-class, like authors of stuff. So do check out those Visual Jam sessions. The recordings are typically available for those as well. So we do have another shout out that came in whilst we were airing that piece, actually. So we have a shout out from Lee. And Lee would like to say thanks to Gladys Lamb for sharing so many real life cases during her presentation. And her presentation was Add Value, Think Forward, Rule Sprint. where policymakers, BAs and developers work together to define, refine and test rules. Really quite informative, so fantastic, great to give our appreciation, and Gladys of course is a fantastic speaker with so much knowledge and shares it so freely. So kudos to Gladys, and thank you to Lee for putting that shout out through. As a reminder, there are just 2 more episodes left, so if you would like to make a shout out to a colleague, to a speaker, it's kind of like your last chance. So hit up the URL shoutout.link, fill in the form. You can even attach an image. I suppose you could attach a short video. We'd not really thought that through, but hey, if you really want to test our technical prowess, make a little video. It would have to be less than about 30 seconds though, because the timing on these sessions is really quite tight. The look on my producer's face now I've said that is a picture, viewer. So yeah, someone send us a 30-second video. Let's see what we can do with that. Getting back into my serious presenter mode now. So that brings us to the very end of this episode. I do hope you're enjoying these informal bits of the conference between the conference as much as we are enjoying producing them. We are back at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And again, we have a packed agenda there. We actually have a slightly extended episode. We've been given 40 minutes, which is awesome. And we're going to run a panel session. The panel session will be with Ron Ross, Gladys Lamb, with Jared Gorai and Roger Burlton. We're going to be talking about changing change, how we might need to change as practitioners of change. And we're also going to hear from Sasha Agnova about business process improvement. So absolutely a session not to be missed. That is at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which, if you're interested, is midnight here in the UK. So if you see bags under my eyes and signs of a lot of coffee being drunk, that's because I've been drinking a lot of coffee, which is probably why my energy level is starting to peak. So you won't want to miss that one, because I'll be bouncing around even more than I am normally. So thank you very much for joining us. Go enjoy the rest of the conference now. Be active in the chat, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Bye for now.